Did you know that the oldest evidence of human existence isn't in Europe or Asia, but in Africa? Welcome to History Q&A Trivia, where we challenge your knowledge with fascinating historical facts. Today, we're diving into the rich and complex history of Africa. Get ready to have your assumptions shattered. Let's begin with a question: where was the oldest evidence of Homo sapiens discovered? The answer lies in Jebel Irhoud, Morocco. These remains date back approximately 300,000 years, writing our understanding of human origins. This highlights Africa as the cradle of humankind, a concept further supported by the fossil-rich Great Rift Valley in East Africa. Think of Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania, Omo Kaibish in Ethiopia, and Hadar, also in Ethiopia. It's in Hadar that Donald Johansen and his team made an incredible discovery in 1974, the Australopithecus afarensis specimen nicknamed Lucy, dating back 3.2 million years. Now, let's jump to the rise of early states and kingdoms. Most people know about ancient Egypt, emerging along the Nile around 3100 BC, unified by Nama. But did you know about the kingdom of Kush, which rose south of Egypt in Nubia? Its major centers were Kama, Napeta, and Meroe, the last of which became renowned for its iron production and its unique Meroitic writing system. Further east, in present-day Ethiopia and Eritrea, the Aksumite Empire thrived as a major Red Sea power from the 1st to 8th centuries CE. A key moment was King Ezona's adoption of Christianity in the 4th century CE. Now, let's journey westward to the Mali Empire. Who founded this empire after the Battle of Karina in 1235? The answer is Sundiata Keita. But the empire is most famous for Mansa Musa. What was so special about Mansa Musa? His pilgrimage to Mecca around 1324-1325 became legendary for the sheer wealth he displayed. Following the Mali Empire, the Songhai Empire rose to prominence. Under which ruler did the Songhai Empire reach its peak after 1493? The answer is Askia Muhammad I, shifting southward, consider Great Zimbabwe. Between which centuries did this civilization flourish in present-day Zimbabwe? The answer is roughly between the 11th and 15th centuries. And along the East African coast flourished the Swahili city-states. Name some of the major Swahili city-states that became major Indian Ocean trade hubs from the 10th to 16th centuries. These included Kilwa, Mombasa, Malindi, and Zanzibar. These cities were not isolated, they were part of a vast cosmopolitan network connecting East Africa with Arabia, Persia, India, and even China. Kilwa Kisiwani, for example, controlled access to gold from Sofala in southern Africa. Next, we must confront the devastating impact of the slave trade and colonization. Approximately how many Africans were transported during the transatlantic slave trade? The answer is an estimated 12.5 million, with about 10.7 million surviving the horrific Middle Passage to the Americas. What event formalized the scramble for Africa among European powers? The Berlin Conference, which took place from 1884 to 1885. One particularly brutal example of colonial exploitation was King Leopold II's claim over the Congo Free State in 1885. What was so horrific about Leopold's rule in the Congo? It was his personal possession, a system of forced extraction and violence that led to the deaths of millions. But African history is also filled with resistance. What pivotal events saw Ethiopia, under Emperor Menelik II, defeat Italy, preserving its independence? The Battle of Odwa, on March 1, 1896. Moving to South Africa, what was the name of the war fought between the British and the Boers from 1899 to 1902? It's known as the South African War, or the Second Boer War. The repercussions of that conflict would shape the future of South Africa. In what year was the Union of South Africa created? The answer is 1910. And when did apartheid formally begin in South Africa? It was in 1948, under the National Party. The struggle against apartheid was marked by tragic events. What was the Sharpeville massacre, and when did it occur? It took place on March 21, 1960, when police killed 69 protesters. And what about the Soweto uprising? It began on June 16, 1976, with student protests that were met with violent repression. Finally, a turning point. In what year was Nelson Mandela elected South Africa's first black president? The answer is 1994. Let's shift our focus to independence movements across the continent. Which country became the first sub-Saharan African colony to gain independence from Britain? Ghana, on March 6, 1957, under Kwame Nkrumah. When did Nigeria become independent? October 1, 1960. And Algeria? July 5, 1962, after a brutal war with France. Kenya gained its independence on December 12, 1963. Mozambique became independent from Portugal on June 25, 1975 and Angola on November 11, 1975. Finally, South Africa held its first democratic elections on April 27, 1994. Let's conclude with continental institutions. When was the Organization of African Unity founded? It was on May 25, 1963, in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. And when did the African Union replace the OAU? In 2002. Where are the AU's headquarters located? Back in Addis Ababa. Before European colonization, the trans-Saharan trade connected West Africa with North Africa and the Mediterranean for centuries, with goods including gold, salt, ivory, leather, and enslaved people. The city of Timbuktu became a major center of Islamic scholarship between the 14th and 16th centuries. Ethiopia had diplomatic and commercial ties with the Byzantine world, the Arabian Peninsula, and Europe long before colonial partition. Ironworking in Africa is very old. Where in present-day Nigeria shows early ironworking traditions around the first millennium BC. The Nok culture. In Meroe, iron production became a major economic and political asset. African states were sophisticated and highly varied. The Benin Kingdom is famous for what? The Benin bronzes. What was the role of the Oba of Benin? He presided over a centralized state with major urban planning and diplomacy. The Asante Empire in present-day Ghana developed powerful military and commercial institutions in the 18th and 19th centuries. The Swahili coast was not isolated, it was part of a cosmopolitan network linking East Africa, Arabia, Persia, India, and China. Who built a powerful state and resisted French expansion in West Africa until his capture in 1898? Samori Touré. Who led the War of the Golden Stool in 1900 against British demands in the Asante Kingdom? Ya Asantewa. Where did the Moji Moji Rebellion take place from 1905 to 1907? German East Africa. How recent is Africa's liberation history? Namibia gained independence in 1990, Eritrea in 1993, and South Sudan in 2011. Africa is foundational to human history, the cradle of humanity. The Nile, Saharan, Indian Ocean, and later Atlantic systems made Africa central to Afro-Eurasian commerce. The Berlin Conference accelerated the partition of territories by European powers with little regard for local political realities. Defeats and resistance campaigns against colonizers became mobilizing memories for later independence movements. Figures like Kwame Nkrumah, Jomo Kenyatta, and Patrice Lumumba became foundational to modern nationalism. That concludes our journey through African history trivia. I hope you learned something new and gained a deeper appreciation for the continent's rich and complex past.